What if I told you that the system that we've been trusting our children's mind with and their values and the future was actually never designed to help them reach their full potential? What if it was designed to make them feel compliant and dependent and profitable to somebody else? If we haven't met before, my name is Anne-Marie and I am a homemaker, homeschooler, and a mom of four. And today we are exposing the truth about why the classroom system is failing our children and why Mike and I absolutely refuse to hand our kids over to a system that is built to destroy families and to create workers, not thinkers. And this has been on my heart for a little while now, and I know the filming spot is not ideal while Micah's working on a schoolie, but the message needs to get out. This is really not about judging any parent for the choices that we've made to the best of our ability. Every family is obviously on our own journey, and I have nothing but respect for parents who are doing the best that we can with the information and circumstances that we have. So, if your kids currently go to school right now, I am not here to shame you. I am here to share what I've learned and offer some encouragement and perhaps a different perspective for those of us who might feel the feeling that that nudge in our heart that there may be another way. And I know this is a controversial topic, but if we care about our children's future, we need to be talking about this. Let's start with the truth. The education system is not broken. I know we've been thinking that, but the education system is not broken because it's working exactly like it was designed to work. And that is what should terrify us. So when we drop off our kids at school, we're not sending them to be educated. We're sending them to be conditioned. Conditioned to sit still, to follow orders, to ask permission, and to accept whatever authority is put in front of them. So we're paying taxes to fund a system that teaches our children that their worth comes from grades, that their ideas don't matter unless it's approved by somebody else, and that their primary responsibility is to comply. And we've been sold this lie that we're not qualified to teach our own children, that somehow a stranger with an education degree knows our children better than we do, and that we are handing over our most precious gift to an institution for 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, for 12 years. Think about that, 12 years, the most formative years of our children's life. And we're supposed to just trust somebody that will shape them into according to our values. And that's not education. When we think about it and we're willing to face it, that's the failure of fulfilling our responsibility as parents. Here's what they don't want us to know. The modern school system was actually designed during the Industrial Revolution with one goal: to create compliant workers for factories. Children sitting in a row, moving only when the bell rings, raising their hands to speak, doing a repetitive task and following instructions without question and getting in trouble if they socialize. And that's not a coincidence. That's called conditioning. The factory owners needed workers who wouldn't think for themselves, who wouldn't question authority, and who would be so grateful to have a steady paycheck. So they created a system that would produce exactly that. In my personal opinion, that's about breaking apart the family unit that has existed for thousands of years. Because before the system, children learn from their parents and their grandparents and their extended families. Like they learn trades and skills and values in a real world context. The industrial education system is separating children from their families because families teach independence, families teach entrepreneurship, families teach you that you don't need to rely on an institution to survive. And that's exactly what they didn't want. Because when our children are being taught that they need to be depending on approval or are being told what to do and when to do it, they're actually not learning that they can trust their own judgment, that they need experts to tell them what's right and what's wrong. They're being taught that success means following a predetermined path, like we've all heard it: get a good grades, go to college, get a good job, and work for somebody else for 40 years and hope that there's something left for retirement. And the system punishes a creative thinking, and independent thought, and entrepreneurial spirit. Children who actually question and think differently and actually don't fit the mold are labeled as problems that need to be fixed. And they're being taught that there's only one right answer, one way to think, one path to success, and that path somehow always leads to institutions that profit from their compliance. And it's actually designed to create financial safes. Our children are being taught that truth is relative. There's no one absolute. There's no absolute standards, that their parents' values are completely outdated. They're being indoctrinated into ideologies that directly contradict what we've been teaching at home. That Jesus died on the cross for our sins, real biblical truth. And we send our children to school as children, and then they come home as products of a system that sees them nothing more than future taxpayers and consumers. And that, to me, it's a big problem. Instead of training our children to be good employees, it's important to teach them to be problem solvers and innovators and leaders. Like our girls absolutely love anything entrepreneurial and creative. They built a t-shirt business a few years ago. They started writing books on their own prompting. They're creating bracelets and necklaces, and they created a lemonade stand and just all of these great skills. Like they were learning how to sew and how to bake and how to cook. And I absolutely love that because we're showing them how to identify opportunities, how to create value, and how to build something meaningful with their life. We're not preparing them to go work for somebody else's dream for 40 years of their life. Well, actually, we're preparing them to be homemakers because that's what Titus 2 confirms that that's God's calling for women. So we're preparing them to be homemakers. In the meantime, they can learn skill set for them to be able to add value to their society and the community and just their families when they are able to be homemakers later on. But that's another story for another time. When we educate our children at home, we are teaching them more than just subjects. We're teaching them how to think critically, how to solve problems, how to really take ownership of their own learning. They learn at their own pace, in their own way, without being held back by some timelines or are being forced to conform into somebody else's agenda. And our children need to learn how to apply knowledge to real situations and how to start businesses, how to manage money, how to serve other people through their God given gifts and skills. So, Micah and I actually made a decision to homeschool way before we had children. That was a conversation on our first date, actually. We kinda drill each other of questions just to make sure, like an interview kind of thing, and just to make sure that our values were in alignment. And I didn't even know homeschooling was a thing. I went to public school like most of us, and Micah was homeschooled until grade 9. As somebody who looked down on motherhood and homemaking, if you had told me 15 years ago that I would be homeschooling my own children one day, I would have laughed in your face. But we chose to homeschool our 4 girls. They're 8, 6, 4, and 2. Not because it's convenient, but because we refuse to hand over our children's minds to a system that doesn't share our values, that doesn't care about the individual potential, that was never designed to be Christ centered. So Mike and I firmly believe that parents, not institution, parents are responsible for raising their children, for training them in the way they should go. We believe that families know what's best for their children, not administrators or politicians. It's our responsibility as parents to train our children the way they should go with our values, not the government's values, not the school board's values, not even the values of well meaning teachers who don't know our children's heart the way we do. And we're the ones who know our children's unique personalities and struggles and strengths and what excites them and motivates them. We are the ones who understand the context of their behavior and what they need to, to grow into the people they've meant to become. Micah and I absolutely refuse to outsource that responsibility that God has given us. I know some of us may be thinking, but Christian schools are amazing and they say they're building character and training children with godly values. First, we need to understand that a lot of kids in Christian schools are not even Christians. They're there because of exactly the marketing side of how they build character. So some parents send their kids with behavioral situations to those schools in hope that it will help them build character. And the reality is that even Christian schools that promise to instill all these character traits are asking us to delegate our most important responsibility to somebody else. So, how is that possible to leave the responsibility to discipline and disciple our children to a teacher who has 30 other students, as well meaning as she is? When a child needs a correction, when they're struggling with a character issue, that teacher has 29 other children demanding their attention. They can't possibly give that child that individualized guidance, the patient correction, and the heart level discipleship that real character formation requires. That teacher might be wonderful and might be godly and might truly care about our children. But humanly speaking, they can't replace the deep, intimate relationship that allows a parent to truly shape a child's character over time. And real character formation doesn't happen in a classroom lesson about honesty or kindness. It happens in the everyday moment when our children are facing a choice and we're there to guide them through it. So it happens when they're frustrated and we show them how to handle their emotions. And it happens when they make mistake and we help them understand the consequences to make it right. And these moments They can be scheduled. It's not like they can be planned into a curriculum. I haven't been able to do that anyway. I know there will always be the ones to say, yes, but it's better to send a kid to school than to stay in a neglected home. Or there will always be the reasons that we give ourselves as to why we can't homeschool. And I've been there. I've heard them all, pretty much. And I've said some of them myself at some point. My kids are too social. They need to be around other kids all day. There's actually tons of different ways to get our kids around other kids. Or I don't have the patience to be around my kids 24/7. That's a parenting problem in itself. But why are we not raising kids that we want to be around instead of escaping from them? Or we need the dual income, so I have to work. Do we really? Or is that because we don't want to give up our lifestyle and cut down that lifestyle that we have? And I say this with all the love and respect because I used to be very statusy as a banker and I liked flashy things and I liked my trips and my $10 Starbucks stop every single day. Or I can't teach high school math. I said this. I failed my high school math 3 times. And it's a good thing that there are great resources out there that we can use, or and one of those being Micah, who took calculus for fun, and he's absolutely amazing. Or my kids would never listen to me the way they listen to a teacher. That's a parenting issue, not a homeschooling issue. Or we live in a great school district. It's different here. Have we never stopped and wonder why we are assigned school districts based on where we lived? What if we prefer this other school? We would have to jump through hoops to apply there. And that never made sense to me. Or I need a break during the day to be a better mom. That's like the mom who says, I need to send my kid to daycare so I have enough patience. Again, parenting issue. Why are we not raising kids that we want to be around and not escape all day long? And I get it. These are real, valid reasons. And honestly, some of them might be valid for the season of life that we're in right now. But here's what I've learned: when we truly want something and we believe that it's the right thing for our family, we really truly believe it and we pray about it and we feel convicted, we find a way to make it work. We get creative, we make sacrifices, we figure it out. Think about all the things that we've made through our life when they really matter to us. Maybe it's losing weight, starting a business, moving to a new city, saving something that was important to us. When it became a priority, we found a way. The same is true for homeschooling. When we shift from I can't because to how can I make this work, everything changes. And this is not about being the perfect homeschool mom with the perfect Pinterest worthy schoolroom because I would have totally failed. We have none of that. It's about aligning our daily choices with our deepest values, about what's best for our children. Maybe that means starting small, pulling them out for just a year to see how it goes. Maybe it means to get creative with our living situation to make it work on one income. The path might not be easy, but if we truly believe that it's the right thing for our family, there's always a way forward. And while we're at it, let's address but it's better to send a kid to school than to stay in an abusive home. Every child deserves to be safe and to be loved and to be taught with intention. If a child is truly being neglected or abused at home, that's a tragedy and it must be addressed. Abuse is evil and it should never be tolerated or excused under any system. But let's not pretend that putting our kids into a system for 8 hours a day is the solution. Schools don't replace parents. If a child is in danger, the answer is not school. It's intervention, it's justice, it's stepping in and protecting that child, not just handing them off to a broken system and hoping for the best. We don't fight darkness with more distance. We fight it by shining light. And that means advocating for the child, equipping the parents and holding them accountable, and strengthening the support system that help families heal. But we also need to not confuse the failure of some parents for failure of homeschooling. Homeschooling, when done with love and purpose, is not neglect, it's discipleship. It's a return to God's design for parents to be the primary nurturer and protectors and educators of their children. The presence of abuse doesn't prove that homeschooling is the problem. It proves that we need stronger communities and healthier families and a culture that refuse to look the other way, no matter where our child sleeps or studies. Every day that we wait is another day that our children are being shaped by a system that doesn't care about their potential. Every day that we delay is another day that they're being taught to be dependent instead of independent. The world needs leaders and innovators and problem solvers. It doesn't need more compliant employees who are afraid to think for themselves. We have the power to opt out. We have the power to say no to a system that's failing our children. We have the power to take control of our family's future, but we have to be willing to act. And we have to be willing to go against the crowd, to face criticism, and to trust ourselves over the experts. The decision that we make about our children's education will not just impact them. It will impact their children and their children's children. We're not just choosing how they're going to spend their day. We're choosing what kind of adults they're going to become. The future of our children and society depends on the choices that we make today. So let's make them count.